And yeah, so I'm so excited to have Eric Linssen, who is the head of demand generation at Community Boost here. Eric currently leads demand generation for Community Boost, a digital marketing agency that exists to empower hundreds of nonprofits to scale online revenue and impact. Along with the team at Community Boost, he's managed millions of dollars in digital ads and has seen firsthand the best and worst decisions nonprofits make when approaching growth. And he cannot wait to share what he's learned with you today. So thank you, Eric, for being here. And you guys are all in for this awesome session and quite a treat from Eric. So thanks again, Eric.
Thank you, Candace. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been excited to be involved with the Digital Fundraising Summit for a while, and all the awesome stuff that CauseVox does, especially in education. So I'm excited to have put this presentation together and be sharing it. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Awesome. And you guys can all check out Community Boost.
You guys see this?
Yes, looks great.
Awesome. So today I'll be covering key growth strategies nonprofits can ethically steal or copy from the most innovative organizations in the world. So Candace just introed myself. I'm Eric, head of demand generation at Community Boost. I have a background in mainly like online marketing for nonprofits. And my email is eric@communityboost.org. If you have any specific questions throughout the presentation, I'm always happy to make one-on-one time to dive into anything specifically. A little bit about Community Boost. Like Candace said, we're an agency that exists to empower social ventures changing our world. So we work with around 200 nonprofits managing Google ad grants and Facebook ads and email marketing and website design. Here's some of our impact metrics. And then we also, believe it's great to work with 200 nonprofits directly, but we learn so much from working with them. What if we could share those insights with thousands of nonprofits? So we do content and education, and that's part of what this is about. So I want to start with a question. Just go ahead and put in the chat your question to how does your organization grow? Word of mouth, grant dollars. Facebook, more donations, friendships, community members, let's see, telling other community members about the work we do, collaboration and partnerships, memberships, word of mouth, partnerships, grants and fundraising events. Awesome. So yeah, you guys can all check out in the chat exactly how people believe their organizations grow, but I'm asking this question because I think this is hopefully what we're going to be covering in the presentation of how we can answer the question most effectively. So in the spirit of cheesy quotes that are actually really thoughtful, a quote that we really like at Community Boost is, if you don't know what port you're sailing to, no wind is favorable. And kind of the reason we go into this is because as nonprofit marketers, often we can be in a situation where we have a million different tactics and channels to choose from, right? SEO, influencer marketing, TikTok, direct mail, paid social, grant writing, PR, all these things that are all new shiny objects that are popping up all the time and are vying for our attention and our time as like small resource strapped teams. And if we don't know which direction we're going, we can pick up different objects because they look shiny and cool, but in reality, we're not making any distinct progress towards where we're actually trying to go. So these are all basically different wins, and we don't know which one is favorable for the direction our organization is going until we have a codified growth model. So that's kind of what we're going to be going into today is growth models, the idea of what a growth model is, examples from different industries and different organizations in the social space, organizations all around us. Then going into what we call the Community Boost and nonprofit growth model. So it's kind of a one-size-fits-all growth model to use as a jumping off point for for really making your growth model your own, and then a system for turning your growth model into systematic, real, measurable, and focused growth, diving into some of the channels, metrics, and more. And there we'll be covering more in-depth tactics. So I want to make one note is that we're focusing a lot on like the strategic part here, instead of going straight into tactics. So like we do a lot of content that's like, this is exactly how you use Facebook and Instagram ads to scale online revenue, or these are key tips for like your bidding strategies in the Google Ad Grant. But what we've found talking to a lot of nonprofits is that oftentimes all the tactics in the world don't really make a difference if we don't understand exactly how those tactics tie in to growing our organization, and as small teams, which ones we should prioritize over others. So hopefully this will help. So first, we'll jump into growth models all around us, right? And the growth model at its simplest is just a system that represents how your organization grows. So in an ideal world, we'd be able to go to everyone in our organization, like at Community Boost, I want to be able to go to all 45 people that work at Community Boost and say, hey, how does Community Boost grow? Here's a marker and a whiteboard, and they'll be able to all grow the exact same thing on the whiteboard and say how their distinct work fits into the growth of the organization. So there are a bunch of different options here in the research. This is the flywheel by Jim Collins. So Jim Collins is a really famous researcher for-profit companies. He wrote a book called Good to Great, where he basically compared similar companies who are similar in almost every way, but one would outperform the other one in a certain period of time. And then he codified exactly what helped that one company outperform the others. And it's a great book called Good to Great that I definitely recommend reading, but it basically outlines you have disciplined people who are great leaders and have a great culture, which leads to disciplined thought, which are like shared definitions and big, hairy goals, which leads to disciplined action, which is reaching or getting close to reaching those goals, which then attracts more disciplined people, which leads to more disciplined thought and disciplined action. And he calls this the flywheel. I definitely check out the book for more. But essentially what it means is you make steps forward consistent with what you're best in the world at, which is what he calls the hedgehog concept. You accumulate visible results, people line up energized by the results, and it builds more momentum, which means you make more steps forward. This is like the flywheel is something that, like a normal flywheel, is really hard to start, but once it starts, it keeps rolling really effectively and grows. So this is pretty esoteric and not super helpful until he goes to Amazon and gives them a presentation on the flywheel, and they codify it for their own goals. And they say, Amazon's goal is to grow. As we grow, we lower our cost structure, which lowers our prices, which makes the customer experience better. As our customer experience is better, we get more traffic, which attracts sellers, which attracts selection, which increases customer experience. So again, this is like looking back to that first picture. Amazon goes from scatter different ideas to a codified growth model that everyone in the organization can understand. And you ask anyone who works there, how do you contribute to our growth? Someone can say, this is how I increase traffic. This is how I increase sellers. This is how I lower our cost structure. This is how I lower our prices. And they're the key parts of your organization's growth. That's codified. And then they can prioritize different tactics, right? Because you can say, oh, this will help our customer experience, but this actually has no place in our specific growth model, which allows them to focus distinctly on, the things that actually have a difference on their growth. And then there's a bunch of other examples. So Mike Maples Jr. does a lot of work with like pre-stage startups or early startups, and his growth model is acquisition, engagement, monetization, and enlistment as the 4 gears of startup growth. So how do you acquire users? How do you get them to use your product over and over? How much money do you make per user? And enlistment, how do they grow from word of mouth? Again, it gives you these 4 buckets that each of your tactics can fit into, and then you can say, all right, I can look at these efforts as filling into acquisition, and there's key metrics that like track how successful I am at doing them, or enlistment or monetization, etc. Even in the e-commerce world, there's the e-commerce growth model, which is visitors times conversion rate times lifetime value, right? So how many people are going to your website? How many people are converting to purchasers, and what's either the average order value of those purchasers or the lifetime value of those purchasers, and that's your e-commerce growth. In this model, you can see all of their tactics should fit into either increasing visitors or driving cheaper or more qualified traffic, increasing conversion rate, or increasing lifetime value by doing like upsells or charging more per product or changing their pricing or monetization. So again, why this is so helpful is because it takes us from scattered and just following our whim of like what seems like a new shiny object, which happens all the time, to how do these things really affect the core growth levels of our organization. Another, and this is the final example, this guy Brian Balfour and this company Reforge, and he has like really cutting edge work on growth. So I definitely check him out. Here's this universal growth loop, which is the product grows, you attract more and higher quality resources, which means you solve more meaningful problems, similar to the flywheel. But you can see how each of your actions affect each part of the growth loop. And if they don't affect a part of the growth loop, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And then he has this growth process, which is an awesome presentation I'd check out as well. But these are all models mostly in the for-profit space. So we decided to apply it to what we do as nonprofits and came up with what we call the nonprofit growth model. So again, this is a one-size-fits-all solution, and it's meant to be a jumping off point that you can tailor to the specific needs of your nonprofit. Again, with the goal of having a model that if you go to anyone in your organization, from intern to volunteer to CEO, everyone, you give them a whiteboard and a marker and say, how does our organization grow? They can draw it for you on a whiteboard distinctly and tell you how what they're doing contributes to the growth. So the kind of 3 buckets we're looking at are enrollment. So getting new people enrolled in your organization's mission. How do they find you for the very first time? Engagement. How do you engage with them, right? So turning them from someone who's just, given us their email address or find out about us for the first time, to someone who really has trust in the fact that we're the solution to the problem that they're looking to solve in the world. And then empowerment. So how do you empower the individual to support your organization? And at the end of the day, impact the communities we serve. So empowerment can change depending on the type of organization, from donor lifetime value to volunteer hours to earned revenue. Again, it depends on the organization, but this is a really strong jumping off point. So going into each of these again, enrollment, some of the channels, which we'll dive into more later, are using paid ads, PR, content and SEO, referrals or peer-to-peer, and direct mail. And then there are more tactics you can use as well. Engagement, we want to really care about personalization, having content that builds trust in the relationship with the organization, and then building a tribe or community. And then empowerment, some of the channels we can use are emails or ads, stewardship and gratitude, and even a recurring giving program. And we're going to dive into all this a little bit later. But what I really want to hound on is that what's important isn't exactly which growth model we choose. It's that we have one that our whole organization can describe. So again, going to anyone in our organization and saying, how do we grow? And they show you this model, and then having a system to continuously improve the model over time. It means we have one center of truth in our organization that we can refer back to grow. So this really becomes valuable when we turn this nonprofit growth model into something that's distinct to our organization. So I'll give a couple different examples, right? But for a museum or theater, for example, it might look like our enrollment stage is marketing and growth initiatives, right? So using paid ads to reach people in our local area, local SEO. So when people are searching for shows near me or cool museums near me, we're popping up. And also events or like word of mouth, or some other key tactics there. And then the engagement is actually, instead of engaging with content, the engagement is like delight inspiring experiences. So it's actually people coming into the exhibit or having virtual experiences where they really engage with what we're all doing as an organization and with the mission of either the museum or theater. You can track that with a net promoter score or survey results. And then finally, the empowerment is both fundraising and then also earned revenue. So we want to be looking at like what's our revenue per net new name or someone who comes in through the marketing growth initiatives, but also what's our fundraising revenue. This changes for like a disaster relief org. So we work with a lot of disaster relief organizations. And you can see the enrollment would be marketing and growth initiatives, basically the same, paid ads, referrals, and this PR, content, and organic SEO. And then engagement will look more like how they're engaging digitally, right? So like how many emails are they opening? Are they engaging with social posts? Are they sharing social posts? And then maybe you'll have events as well. Again, this depends organization by organization, but the goal is just to have it codified in this model. And then finally, empowerment is mostly fundraising, but some will have a real strong focus on volunteers, right? So they'll say, what's our fundraising revenue per, net new name or a new person who just found out about us? And then also how many of those people end up volunteering. And then, we created this enrollment, engagement, empowerment model, but for some organizations, they're just not going to fit in that model. So they need to codify their growth model differently. Charity Water, for example, has a really cool model where they have 2 bank accounts. One bank account, 100% of the donations from normal people go to funding wells in the countries that they work in, right? None of the money goes to paying Scott Harrison, the CEO, or paying the marketing team. The other bank account is for operational investors to invest in growing the team, right? So the 2 stories are different. A story for the one is, hey, we're a nonprofit where 100% of your donations go to helping build wells. The other one is, you can really help us build an organization that has a huge impact. And that story is to like entrepreneurs and people who care more about building a team. The other story is people who care about having a distinct impact on all of their money going to impact. So they wouldn't fit as well in the growth model that we outlined before. Theirs might look like fundraising and growth. So events, recurring giving, general donations. I mean, it's Charity Water. They run like TV ads and billboards and crazy PR stunts. So all of that. And then engagement, which is like engagement, event attendance, social sharing. And then their empowerment is their impact. So crystal clear impact metrics, right? Of like, this is how many wells we've built, and this is how effectively we're building them. Bring those metrics to operational investors that will then invest more, that you can invest back into fundraising and growth. This almost fits more into the flywheel model. Fairtrade USA is another really cool example. So they will certify businesses as Fairtrade certified. So a business, for example, will buy coffee from coffee farmers in Nicaragua. If they get Fairtrade certified, they'll commit to paying those coffee farmers fair wages. So the beginning is certifying businesses, which they do either through organic growth or referrals or even sales, like cold sales to businesses they want to certify. Once they certify those businesses, then they have to make sure that they connect those businesses to farmers, where those farmers get fairer wages. As the farmers get fairer wages, that they reinvest those wages in community development, right? So like developing the communities around them on their own. And then it's Fairtrade USA's responsibility to get crystal clear impact metrics about that community development that they can then roll into more effective fundraising. Say, this is the solution we have to develop communities effectively in these third world countries without NGO or third-party aid. And that leads to more effective fundraising. They fundraise more money, they can put more money into certifying more businesses, and the flywheel starts spinning. So again, what's important isn't exactly which growth model we choose. I just outlined a lot, and I'm happy to share even more models with you. Or if you have any questions, again, feel free to shoot me an email at eric@communityboost.org. But what's important isn't exactly which growth model we choose. It's that we have one that our whole organization can describe, and that everyone agrees on which growth model we choose. And then once we have that, right, you can go to the volunteer or the intern or the marketing director or the CEO and ask them, how do we grow? And they draw it on a whiteboard. They all draw the same model. Then we can move from qualitative to quantitative, right? So you can move from qualitative, which is, this is our model, enrollment, engagement, empowerment, to a quantitative model, which is basically a massive spreadsheet where we look at the metrics for each of these areas of growth. So enrollment, our key metric is, what are our net new names, right? How many new people are we getting in our organization? Engagement is either retention or churn. So of those net new names, how many of them are continuing to engage with our content? How is their relationship changing from transactional to more of a monogamous relationship with our organization? And then empowerment, again, this depends on our organization and the metrics that we want to track. But it's going to look like average donor lifetime value. How many of our donors are volunteering, or how many of our donors are donating, and how much are they donating over time? And that equals estimated revenue growth. Same type of thing, where here the goal is just to have a model. That's all we need to do to start. And as we continue to test new things, we can plug them into the model and start to improve our model over time. But what's really beautiful about this is that it goes from what we had before, which is like a scattered marketing team, following a bunch of different shiny objects, to being able to say, all right, do I want to do, invest in SEO or paid Facebook ads, plug them both into this quantitative growth model and have real metrics around which one might be more effective at driving growth. Again, so we go from scattered to this quantitative growth model, and then on top of that sits, or using this growth model, we can have the ability to say, do I want to do direct mail or paid social? How will that affect each parts of our nonprofit's growth model? And then you can prioritize different channels, right? Which is something that if we don't have this growth model even outlined, we can get pulled in a bunch of different directions. But here, we're really strict about saying only focusing on the things that help grow our organization, which is really helpful. And then the other key pro here is that we have a center of truth, right? So instead of this being in the mind of the marketing director or the ED or someone on the marketing team, where also if it's in the mind of all those people, they can be thinking that our nonprofit grows in different ways. This is a center of truth we all agree on. And then if one team member leaves and a new one comes, or you have big organizational changes, you have the center of truth that can onboard the new person to how we grow super effectively. Again, it's one of those things with second order effects where it might take a decent amount of time to build out in the beginning, but once we built it out, it has these second and third and fourth order effects where it saves us a lot of time moving forward. And then on top of this growth model, so the growth model is basically the how, right? Like how our organization grows. And then we can look into the why, like why these different channels make people act differently. So we don't have enough time in this presentation to dive into it, but in an ideal world, we'd have this quantitative growth model and then build like a donor psychology map on top of that looks at like why people are changing behaviors when you test different things. So I just wanted to shout out, at Communities, we do a nonprofit marketing summit, which is a free nonprofit marketing event where we bring in like great nonprofit marketing leaders to talk about specific tactics and strategies. And last year we had Tyler Ruhr, who's the creative director of Charity Water, come in, and he gave an amazing presentation on the reimagined nonprofit marketing funnel, where we go from a normal for-profit marketing funnel to one where we build attention, empathy, trust, belief, and purpose. It's an amazing presentation. If you shoot me an email at eric@communityboost.org, I can send you it. But that helps you really start to understand the donor psychology and the why behind some of the experiments that we're running beforehand. Again, we could talk for like hours about this specifically. I just wanted to make a note about it. Here, let me put my email in the chat. Awesome. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, great. So now that we have that quantitative growth model, I want to dive into the specific tactics for each of these. So, and again, I also want to, if you have any questions or Q&A, put them in the Q&A window, and we're going to protect a lot of time at Q&A at the end for Q&A and questions and answers. But we have enrollment, engagement, and empowerment, and I'm going to go into some of the best channels that we see for most organizations. Again, this isn't I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations where we're like, based on past experience, this is what we think would work for your organization. But we can't do that in this format. So I'm just going to share some key channels that we've seen work really well. And then again, we're not going to go super in depth on like bidding strategies for the Google ad grant or campaign structuring for Facebook ads. But we also have a lot of content that goes in depth into all of those things. So if you'd love that, yeah, you can just shoot me an email and I'll send you some more details around specific content for each of these. So we'll start with enrollment. Oh, sorry, I put my email in the chat to all panelists instead of panelists and attendees. Thanks, Candace. Okay. So here we go. Getting into enrollment, right? So some of the key channels that we've seen work really well are Facebook and Instagram ads are basically the best channel that we see work for nonprofits. So Facebook and Instagram as an ecosystem touch like, I think it's like 3 billion people worldwide. And the crazy statistic is that they touch more people's lives than any major religion, movement, or book in the history of mankind, which is crazy. But what that means is that your potential donors or people that want to learn about your organization or the impact you're making are on Facebook and Instagram. And they have data, billions of data points about what these people are likely to do and organizations are likely to interact with, that makes it probably the most effective channel at reaching those people and getting in front of them, especially for the first time. And then they have all these metrics to prove ROI super effectively. So a 3 to 5 times return on ad spend is like very possible. And that's like what we've seen as an average return on ad spend for $1 in ad spend managed. And then the final note is that you can do custom and personalized creative with their targeting options. So you can target, for example, like when we've run ads for a Humane Society, we've targeted like cat lovers and dog lovers with like a cat image and a dog image, respectively. And that's just one option. Like you could target men and women with different images, or like the main way to do it is, someone who's brand new to your organization versus someone who's visited a web page and stayed for a certain amount of time versus someone who's donated before. All can get different messaging through this channel. So we have like hour-long webinars about this specifically, which I'm happy to share with you, but we just don't have enough time today to go deep into the details. The next channel is the Google Ad Grant for enrollment. So again, the Google Ad Grant is $10,000 a month of free advertising spend that Google gives to qualified 501c3 nonprofits. And it lets us capitalize on searcher intent. So for a local museum and someone searching for things to do in San Diego, it's possible that we'll be able to bid on that keyword and show up as a paid search result for people searching for that keyword. And then they'll learn about our organization for the first time. It's not as strong at empowerment, right? So actually getting people to donate, but for getting people who are interested in things that your organization does and impact their organization makes, there's almost no better tool, right? I mean, it's $10,000 a month of free ad spend from Google. So we need to look at it as like, and there are some stipulations on how exactly we can use it, but we need to look at it as like that much of a resource. So if the decision is between like writing, 2 blog posts or like utilizing this ad grant, like the ad grant needs to take precedence because it has that ability for real impact in growing your organization online. Again, we have hour-long webinars about this, which I'm happy to share with you, because we can go really, really in detail on like distinct strategies for the Google Ad Grant. We're one of Google's first certified professional partners, so we like know all the tips and tricks which we're happy to share with anyone. The third strategy is SEO. So this really depends on the organization and what keywords you're trying to rank for. And then SEO combined with PR and content. So basically, one thing that's super important to SEO is what content you're making and how that content is solving searcher queries. So if a searcher is searching for something like things to do in San Diego and you create a blog that's really helpful of helping them solve what they're looking for, that's like, things to do in San Diego, and your, museum like represents a bunch of those, then you can start to rank for that keyword. So that's like solving the searcher's intent, and then PR and content fit into that, right? Because the content you make should be strategic around what keywords you're trying to rank for. And if you're doing any PR outreach, Google actually rewards organizations who have links from reputable sources. So if you have reputable PR sources link back to your organization's website, that can be super helpful for your SEO. And if you're already working on PR, you want to make sure that those are like working together in that holy trifecta. So yeah, we can share a lot more about SEO, and you can go really in depth and detailed, but basically the key things to think about are which keywords you're trying to rank for. So like have a strategy and tie that into your content strategy. And then thinking through, the first step there is being a solution. It's like answering what your searchers are looking for, prioritizing user experience. So how do we make sure that the user experience of someone on our website is really strong? So the main thing there is page speed, and then a really well-structured, post, given the answers they're looking for that are tied into the keywords they're searching. And then once we prioritize user experience, we can try to keep visitors on site. So think about if you're building blog posts, linking out from that blog post to a different blog post with more resources, because Google will reward sites where people stay on the site for longer. And then once you do that, then you can start to test new creative ideas. Again, we have a lot to go into with SEO that we're happy to share. And then finally is direct mail. To be frank, we don't do any direct mail at Community Boost, but we saw some clients see strong success, especially during COVID when people were at home more often. But it's not my area of expertise, so I can't really give any advice there. Oh, sorry. So the next stage is engagement, right? So enrollment, how do we use all those channels to get new people enrolled in our organization's mission and believing in what we're doing? Then engagement, how do we engage with them and build trust and make sure that they believe that we're the solution to the problem that they're looking to solve through our organization. So again, this depends on the exact type of organization. Like we were saying, it might be more like focusing on the actual experiences. If you're a theater or a museum, or it might be more strategic content if you're more of a digital first organization. But the first thing you can really focus on here is strategic content. So make sure to stay in front of your community and bring value and trust. So this can tie into your SEO content, right? If you're making blogs, how does that tie into enrollment with the keywords you're trying to rank for? But also, how can that help build trust with existing donors by sharing that blog with them through multiple emails or text or ads to continue to build engagement, to keep people engaged, because everyone's vying for people's attention all the time. You have all these brands competing for their attention. So the goal is to stay top of mind and engage with someone so that when we finally make the appeal in the empowerment part and we ask them to make a donation or visit a show or any of those things, they have like a strong relationship with us through the content that we've been providing them, while that content is helping acquire new potential donors. The next step is email. So still super effective, and there's really cheap tools for using email to email everyone in mass and then really customize the emails that you're sending to certain types of people. And again, value and personalization. The next, which is newer but really helpful, is SMS. So there are some really awesome SMS tools that you can use to communicate with your donors. And when you think about this engagement stage, is really, how do I communicate effectively with my donors? And you look at email, which still, it probably works the most effectively because people are oftentimes more willing to give their email address than SMS, but open rates are like dropping because people are getting more and more emails every day. So it's just becoming less effective as a channel. And then you have SMS, which has 95% open rates. So if you can get, and if email, say, has a 20% open rate and SMS has a 95% open rate, you can almost get 20% as many people. Sorry, SMS is texting. So basically texting your donors, Richard. And a great tool for SMS and a solution for texting your donors is this company called Rally Corp, which we're partners with, and they have a really cool solution directly tailored to nonprofits. So I definitely check them out. But again, the open rates are 95%. Your list can be 80% smaller than an email list and have basically the same results. The one thing to keep in mind for you're texting people as opposed to emailing, which everyone understands, is a really intimate communication channel. So keep it really value-based and casual. And then it's also really helpful for like a development team. If say you're having a call with someone and then you get off the call, instead of sending them a thank you email they might not open, you can send them a thank you text. It's like, thanks so much for your time. Looking forward to chatting again, or however you want to keep that conversation alive. And then the final tip is try building with like groups or community, which we're going to touch on in empowerment. So empowerment, the final stage, right? Again, this depends on your organization's specific goals, but the one thing we can do to increase empowerment is building a recurring giving program, which basically helps all parts of the growth model, right? Empowerment and especially engagement. Nonprofits who build out a recurring giving program, so a program where instead of a donor donating one time, they're committing to donating, month over month. So you have 4.7 times increase in donor lifetime value. So literally like 5 times increase in how empowered that donor is to impact your organization, which is, there's no other specific tactic or hack or tweak that I've seen that can do that. So definitely invest in a recurring giving program. We have, again, resources on like our tips and strategies to build out a recurring giving program as effectively as possible, and what works and doesn't with the clients that we've built recurring giving programs for. There's specific things like a branded Facebook group, like tiering your incentives, so you can, and then naming those tiers, so you can donate like $5 a month, $10 a month, or $50 a month. And then if you're 50, you're in like a certain like core, like specific group that gets incentives, like mailed, t-shirts mailed to your house, or like certain events, or a whole bunch of stuff. But the goal is just to look into building a recurring giving program if you haven't, because it can have a 5 times increase on your donor lifetime value. And it can work year round. So you don't need to focus on just making appeals during year end, where a lot of us will fundraise, 60% of our fundraising revenue. You can do it year round, which gives us power and predictability to our overall revenue. And then email ads and SMS appeals, which is basically tied to campaigns. So targeted, concrete, and concise appeals. It can be really helpful to upload our donor list to Facebook ads and then target those donors with Facebook ads. Because oftentimes what we'll see is we'll send an email to our donor list and think that's it, like we appeal to them. But in reality, only 20% of those donors open the email. So there's 80% of people that we can still reach through ads. And that donor's attention isn't ours. Like, it's being fought for from 100 different companies. So even them seeing an ad might prompt them to open the next email that they see. So this like multi-channel cultivation is super important. Same with like SMS. Like, if you can really get SMS to work, it saves you money that you would have spent trying to reach those people in Facebook ads. And you wouldn't have been able to reach them in email. And then finally is stewardship and gratitude. So again, just making sure when we're looking from a bigger picture at the overall growth model, enrollment, engagement, and empowerment, where we want to allocate resources. Remember that it's way easier to retain someone who's already decided to donate than it is to try to enroll a new person in our organization. So oftentimes, if you put more resources into enrollment, our engagement and empowerment might decrease. And if we put more resources into empowerment, our enrollment might decrease. But depending on the return on like investing in certain areas, oftentimes it makes way more sense to focus on keeping and re-engaging past donors than going out and trying to find a brand new person, especially because we already have data and information about someone who's already donated to our organization. We don't, when someone, for a new person trying to get in front of them, we're competing with 100 other brands and other nonprofits who are all paying money to these ad platforms to try to reach them, but we already have the data about someone who's donated in the past. And it's much cheaper to try to reach them instead of trying to find someone brand new. Again, these were all kind of cursory explanations of each of these channels. If you shoot me an email with what you want to learn about, I'll share. We basically have hour-long webinars about each of these specific channels and tactics that I can share with all of you that are all super helpful. But again, it needs to fit into this overall model and vision. So that's basically it. I bet everyone's tired of me talking for this long, but again, hopefully this goal is going from a scattered marketing team focusing on all these different tactics, pulled in 100 different directions, to understanding our growth model. We can go to anyone in our organization and they can say, this is how our organization grows. And then turning that into a quantitative growth model like this, right? Where we can look at how do each of these tactics affect enrollment, engagement, and empowerment, or whatever you want to define for your organization. And then we can really move forward. So I want to open up time for questions. And I want to also share that at Community Boost, we host the Nonprofit Marketing Summit, which is coming up on August 4th and 6th. So it's a 3-day virtual event that CauseVox is kindly sponsoring, which is awesome. Thank you, Candy. It's a 3-day event. There's 42 sessions. 2 of the days are completely free. It's 100% virtual. And if you're interested in learning about any of the tactics that we talked about, attend the summit because we'll be talking about them. So it'll be, we have people from American Cancer Society, Save the Children, some, awesome nonprofits, people from Community Boost talking about specific tactics for growth. So definitely check out the summit if you haven't already, but I'd love to open up time now for any specific questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. There was so much great information. And like you said, there's so many deep dives that you can do off of it. So I really do highly recommend that you check out Community Boost resources. They have so many free webinars, and definitely check out the Nonprofit Marketing Summit. It's going to be really awesome. Thank you for having us as a sponsor. And thank you to Community Boost for also sponsoring the Digital Fundraising Summit. So it's really fun to partner with you guys. You do great work. I also wanted to let you know that Community Boost is graciously offering a free digital marketing audit to attendees. And I'll include that in the resource package, but also included that in the chat as well. So definitely take a look at those resources. And Eric, I'm sure you're very busy at the moment getting ready for the marketing summit.
Yeah, thanks so much, Candace. The audit is a great opportunity if you have specific questions. Anywhere from, I don't know if we're running our Facebook ads as effectively as we could be to, I want a thought on my strategy for my recurring giving program. We have digital marketing specialists that do this all day long. And we're happy to sit down with you and give one-on-one advice. So definitely take Candace up on that offer.
Awesome. All right. There's a few great questions here. Let's pull out a few. Tracy asked, what's the difference between donor psychology and a donor profile?
Yeah, I'm not sure from a diction or vocabulary standpoint. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. The point is just that you have a place that's centralized where you're keeping track of all these learnings that you can share with new team members and have a centralized source of truth. So again, you can pick whatever framework you think works for your organization. That marketing funnel, I think is industry leading, and it's from Tyler Ruhr from Charity Water, who's an awesome nonprofit marketing mind. But yeah, you can. I'm not familiar with the donor profile specifically, other than a persona, but those are basically the same thing. The one thing is the donor profile relates to who your persona that you're trying to target is. Donor psychology map will kind of map how that person interacts with certain parts in your growth model. So instead of this is conscientious Candace who likes to donate to these organizations, this is how we talk to her. The map will show how you think she'll react to certain emails or certain events or different messaging.
Awesome, cool. And then there's a few questions about the SMS, any SMS tools that you recommend. There was a question about an example of a successful use of SMS as well.
Yeah, I will defer to our partners at Rally Corp to answer that, but I just put it in the chat, and you can reach out to them if you want to hear specifically about some of their examples. And then, to answer kind of the example of examples of successful SMS, like I was saying, I think it's more about, or where we've seen it used best is in that engagement stage and then the empowerment stage of the growth model. So whether that's as a development director, having conversations with potential donors and then sending them thank you notes in SMS, or having a community in your recurring giving tribe where you send them SMS updates instead of email updates. Those are two examples off the bat, but just think through you can ask your donors as well, how would you like to be engaged with from a texting point of view? Because it is definitely a more it's more intimate of a communication channel than like an email, for example. So you want to be really respectful of the attention that you're getting from your donors.
And I think it also depends on like the type of organization you are. I must have given every town my my phone number at some point, but it's really awesome. They'll let me know like when there's a big opportunity to, put my name down for any petitions or, when there is an upcoming, they're a great advocacy organization on reducing gun violence. So yeah, basically they'll let me know like whenever there's like a big update. And so that's, just a good use. And their primary thing that they use SMS to get me to do is, sign petitions. So that's just an example. Cool. Yeah, there's like a few more questions in the chat.
Yeah, I saw one about podcasting, which is great. We don't have too much experience with nonprofits doing podcasting. I don't know if you, Candace, know a lot that do. We work with a couple that have pretty successful podcasts, and that's a great opportunity to fill that both enrollment and engagement part of the model, right? Because you're finding brand new people and then getting really valuable content in front of people who are already in your organization. And then the really cool thing about podcasting is you can have these conversations with awesome people. It's a great way to reach out to brand new people who might not have heard about your organization, but from like a partnership perspective, you really want to get them on. You could say, hey, come work with us and reach this awesome audience. And then you have a conversation, which is easy content to create, and you can batch it, like I was saying earlier, to have like, multiple podcasts in a day. And then from there, you can turn all the podcast into like written and video content that you can then use as content in your overall journey. So you didn't have to like ideate all that content. It just comes from a conversation, and you can repurpose it into content that fits with your like SEO and overall content engagement goals. So I think it's definitely a good idea. Again, you just have to look at your model and see if it makes sense to dedicate the resources there, because you can put a lot of time and effort into a podcast that doesn't gain traction. Then that's obviously not ideal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have thoughts, Candace.
Yeah, I mean, I like kind of an offshoot of that. One of the things that I've actually talked about is I've been seeing a huge trend in nonprofits running webinars. And so that could be a really cool way to engage your audience, just because you can use a webinar to give people a peek into your services that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise, or kind of like a podcast, do interviews and be able to really showcase your work in a different way and invite people to engage with you in a different format that they would have otherwise. I know there's Skid Row Housing Trust, for example, started doing monthly community meetings, and they invited just all of their donors to basically do an Ask Me Anything every month, and it took off like crazy and actually ended up helping them raise funds through those monthly meetings, because people got to actually hear from and engage with both the leadership, and I think they did have some guests of some of the beneficiaries. So just like one really easy way that you can do that. Yeah, so Eric, I'll leave the last couple minutes for you. If you, I guess I would just love to hear more about Community Boost and what people can do if they want to get started with you, what next steps they can take.
Yeah, definitely. You can shoot me in, probably the easiest way is to shoot me an email at eric@communityboost.org. And then I would definitely check out the Nonprofit Marketing Summit. Again, it's 2 days and like 25 sessions are completely free. And that nonprofit marketing funnel came from Tyler Ruhr, who spoke at a past Nonprofit Marketing Summit. We have people talking about specific tactics that I like covered today. So like specific Facebook and Instagram ad tips, Google ad grant tips, email marketing tips, and then more strategic stuff. We have someone who made a documentary that had millions of views on Netflix, sharing a story about how he built that documentary. We have people from American Cancer Society and Save the Children and massive organizations. So check it out at nonprofitmarketingsummit.org. And it's just a great place for people to come together about nonprofit marketing and growth specifically. We try to stay away from fluff and bigger, like less effective tactical things. So it should be a really strong use of your time for 2 days. And yeah, we poured our hearts into creating it. So I'd love to see everyone there.
Awesome. Yeah. And I had a question from Megan. Is it possible to get the marketing summit recorded and sent? I'll be on vacation. I'd love to attend via recording.
Yeah. So basically the summit is August 4th and 6th are 4th and 5th are 2 days with like 3 tracks of sessions each day that are completely free. And we're covering like really detailed tactics and some more high level stuff. And then the 3rd day is basically a day of workshops where we'll go into detail with everyone on specifically how like really tactically to build out some of these things. So like your Facebook ads, will share screen and show you how to build your Facebook ads. Like the Google Ad Grant key will audit an account live. And so the 3rd day is like paid. So it's for VIPs of the event only. So there's an early bird discount right now to purchase your VIP pass where you'll get recordings of the whole event to watch all the sessions. You'll get access to the 3rd day. And you'll also get some other pretty cool benefits. Like we have a 6-hour course about Google Ad Grants that you'll get access to and a bunch of other stuff. But to answer your question, you can get the recordings by purchasing the VIP pass. And then, yeah, just shoot me an email at eric@communityboost.org if you have any specific questions or for whatever reason you want the recordings, but the like budget doesn't work out or any of those.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Eric. Actually, this one last question came in and I think it's very relevant. Glenn asked, is it worth doing an online virtual event or do people have online fatigue?
Yeah, I think it really depends. The way I would approach that is just by testing it. And I know, Candace, you definitely have more data about nonprofits doing webinars. But yeah, it depends on your audience and how comfortable they are with virtual events, and then again, like how fatigued they are. But you can test it pretty easily just by doing one event that you know has content people will engage with and seeing what the type of results are. I mean, when you look at virtual events time compared to in-person events, like there are a lot of really extreme benefits to virtual events where you pay less, your reach can be nationwide, you have a lot more data about people interacting, and your overhead is a lot lower. So I would definitely take all those things into account when you're making that decision. But you have more to share?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would also just say like, I actually think virtual events are here to stay, just because of all of the things that you mentioned. There's so many advantages where you can reach a wider audience with less, time, effort, and budget. But also considering that we're kind of entering in a stage of hybrid fundraising where some people are going to want to engage virtually and some people might want to engage in person. So I would also kind of think about what it would look like to explore doing hybrid, because I think there's an audience for both, and we definitely want to make space for that. So again, thank you, Eric, for being here. This has been so insightful, such great information, and we're going to be including these links and to the marketing summit and the free audit in the resource package as well. So again, thanks, Eric, for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is a pleasure. Yeah, I love being involved with CauseVox and all of the awesome work that you all are doing. So
yeah, it's so great to partner. And thank you again to Community Boost for being an awesome sponsor of the Digital Fundraising Summit. So can't tell you how much I appreciate it.